Hello, everybody. Welcome to the LFC Transfer Room YouTube channel. My name is Stephen, and today we're going to be discussing some centre backs that we need this transfer window. So, who do we need this transfer window? Essentially, at the moment, we have Virgil van Dijk and we have Ibrahima Konate as our centre backs. Now, the depth behind them and the likes of Joel Matip, Joe Gomez, and Costas Tsimikas as well, if he wants to come in and play on the left-handed side there. Kwanzaa too is a very, very young guy, a bit unproven, but realistically, Virgil van Dijk is getting up there in years, and Konate is a little bit injury prone. So it's about time we started infusing some young depth into this squad at the centre back position. So I scouted three different players for us, mostly three different kinds of profiles, but who I would really like us to get is I'll reveal at the end of the video. So who do we have at the moment and what do they bring to the table? As you can see from the chart beside me, we can see how Virgil van Dijk and Konate complement each other massively. You have Virgil van Dijk, who's very good in his duel percentage, his aerial percentage, his forward passes, and his progressive passes. Then you have Konate, who's very good in the air also, good with carrying, and matches up quite well, other than his duel percentage, to Virgil van Dijk. So with that, who do we think we should get in to start bringing in replacements for either of these players? I think Konate could be here for a long while. Just with his injury issues, I would have some slight concerns, and we may need to start looking at options there. So the first option that we have is Castello Lukeba. He is 20 years old. He's currently playing for RB Leipzig. I do apologise about the photo. The only photo I could find of him is with Olympique Lyon at the moment. He would compare very well to Josko Gvardiol and Piero Hincapié as well. He's 25 million. That was noted by Transfer Market back in July, 25 million euro that is. Now, whether or not he'd go for that is another question. I reckon in the region of somewhere about 40 million euro, we might be able to get him. His strengths, I think, is his pace, his tackling. He's a great composure on the ball, and what we need for our centre-back role is to cover a variety of space and then hold the ball and be counter-press resistant, much similar to our centre defensive midfielder needs. We need somebody that can win the ball, hold the ball, then distribute in the short and the intermediate. As you can see from his passing, he has ridiculous short and intermediate passing, both over 90% and over a 90% overall passing percentage. He's over a tackle per game, wins nearly 70% of them. His only issue I would say that he would have would be his yellow and red cards. You don't see Van Dijk or Konate getting a whole lot of them. He's massive amounts of interceptions, but just on 75, and he has a good few blocks, majority of them being shots, which is what you want for your centre-back. Your centre defensive midfielder, you'd want more so blocking passes, and your centre-backs, you'd want more so blocking shots, which is what Lukeba brings in spades. He does have one defensive error, however, but we're not really going to cry over it realistically. So how does Lukeba pair up against Van Dijk and Konate? Well, as you can see from the chart, he's quite a versatile player. He can really do an awful lot for you. The only thing that I would have a knock on him with is his aerial percentage. He doesn't necessarily command the air as much as Van Dijk and Konate, but however, with Konate in there, or with Van Dijk in there, he could very much be a plug and play kind of a player. He's there to begin the replacement of Van Dijk or Konate. He's not there to come in and immediately replace them now. He's there to come in and work his way into the team. That's what these centre-backs are meant to be doing at the moment. Second player I have here is Piero Hincapie. He's a 21-year-old left centre-back and left-back who can cover the likes of Andy Robertson's position, or if we want to use that inverted right-back role, he can play on that side as well. I would have him very much compared to Josko Gvardiol as well. He's currently with Bayer Leverkusen. And as of Transfer Market back in June, I believe, he's worth about 30 to 35 million. I reckon a bid of about 50 million euro would get him. He does have one problem, and that's his discipline. As you can see there, 14 yellows and 3 reds. We've seen what happened with Darwin Núñez when he came to the Premier League. A little bit hot-headed, threw a headbutt, or moved his head towards somebody. If you ask me, it was a little bit soft, but by the rules of the game, it was still a red card. And then players targeted him after that point and tried to get in his head. You can't have that as a centre-back. We get a centre-back sent off because he sparks a forward or a winger. that leaves us massively on the back foot, and that's him out for a couple of games, and it just defeats the purpose of him purchasing him anyway. Do I think that could be coached out of him? Yeah, I do, but at the same time, I do think it's something that he needs to get under control, and it's something that we would need to look at in relation to the kind of player that we're looking for. His passing is very, very good. His medium is a little bit less than desired than Lukeba, but his short range passing is quite good. Long range, we don't necessarily need to worry about. A lot of tackles per game, 2 per game, and wins over 65% of them. As we mentioned with the yellows and the reds, unfortunately, that's just a discipline issue. His interceptions and his blocks are an interesting one, purely because it's quite evenly spread between passes and his shots. So he likes to get in and break up the play, as well as getting a foot in and stopping a shot too. He does as well have 1 defensive error. So how does Piero Hincapie pair up to Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahima Konate? Well, if you look at the chart, he's quite the opposite player, realistically. He's much more of a progressive ball-carrying centre-back, or a ball-handling centre-back, than he would be an out-and-out defender. He could nearly play in a defensive midfielder role, realistically, in my own opinion, from watching him, than he would be in a centre-back role. He's very much a winger, as in he would play very far out on the left-hand side. But that's not, again, the worst thing in the world. I think with the issues we've been having with Andy Robertson lately, and his willingness to go forward, Andy Robertson is much more of a winger than he is a left-back, and I think Piero Hincapie is much similar to that too. As you can see, his progressive passes and his carrying is up there. Andy Robertson loves to get up and down that side of the pitch, and I think it's the clock is ticking on Andy Robertson, just purely because we need somebody that can hold down the fort and be a defensive left back rather than a progressive one. Now, could Hincapie be coached into that? He's only young. I very much think so. But as it stands at the moment, he would be third on the priority list of who we would be going for. The next player that we're going to discuss really is the top of my list, and I've been raving about him all summer. And if we do get him, I really think that he could be our next Virgil van Dijk. So, who is that player, you may ask? Well, if you've been watching any of the live streams that I've been part of or hosting, you will know that I have been singing the praise of Goncalo Inacio all summer long. I believe this guy could come in and be our Virgil van Dijk replacement and play our centre-back role for the next 10 years and dominate, be one of the best centre-backs in the world, without question. He is a 21-year-old left-sided centre-back, or can also play left-back. I'd have him compared with our own Virgil van Dijk and Guardiola as well. He recently signed a new contract as at the time of recording this video, which increased his release clause from about 45 to 40 million euro up to 60 million euro. But I still think at the price of between 50 to 55 million pounds is what it would be. I genuinely think that we should definitely go for him. I think it's a no-brainer. Genuinely, he could very much come in and transform that defense, much the same as Van Dijk came in when we got him back in the day too. His passing, his positioning, and his aerial ability is fantastic. His aerial win percentage isn't the greatest, as you'll see in the chart in a little while, but he challenges in the air, and his dueling in the air is top notch. While he might not win them, he disrupts the play, and play breaks down because of him. He's a disruptor. Also, he's a fantastic passer of the ball. For a centre-back, he had 3 assists last season. It's not really all that heard of for a centre-back to have multiple assists, let alone 1. So he's fantastic with passing the ball. And as you can see from his numbers, his short, intermediate and long-range passing are akin to a centre midfielder. Over 90% for his short, over nearly 95% for his medium, and over 70% for his long. Again, a big tackler of the ball, 2 a game, and wins over half of them. 45 interceptions and 20 blocks. Most of them were passes than shots, which is again akin to a midfielder rather than a centre back. So he could very much come in and fill a massive role that's there. And again, this kind of a player is meant to come in and grow into the team rather than come in and immediately replace a Van Dijk or a Konate at the moment. Van Dijk is going to have another year, maybe 2 with us. I think he goes next summer if we don't see any progression due to the fact that he's come to the end of his contract. I believe he's 2 to 3 years left on it, including this year. Konate, just with the injury concerns, is something that we need to consider in relation to depth as well. He does have 3 defensive errors. However, he is young, and I believe this can be coached out of him. And I believe those defensive errors are due to him playing a little bit higher up the pitch as a centre-back, between the centre defensive midfielder and the centre backs is where he would normally sit, somewhat similar to a bit of a sweeper. But with Sporting as SP, I do think that he could very much come in and be a massive difference maker with ourselves. So how does he compare to Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahima Konate? Well, as you can see, his progressive passes and his carrying is just off the charts. His forward passes and passing is great. And then as well, his defensive actions is relatively around the same level as Van Dijk and Konate too, on the left-hand side of that circle there. I genuinely think that this guy could come in and transform our defense. I believe the €60 million release clause is chump change for what he should be worth. This guy should be going for what Guardiola is going for, but only because he's playing in the Portuguese league at the moment. That's why he's not going for that. If we do not purchase Inacio, I do believe that we will be kicking ourselves in a couple of years' time as to what we could have had. He will be a monster for the next 10 years, and you can mark my words on that. I've sang his praises all summer. I do believe that we need to get him, and if we do get him, I believe that's our centre-back role locked up for the next 10 years, and he can be a leader and a dominant leader on this team for a decade to come yet. So I want to thank everybody for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please do leave a like and subscribe if you're new here. If you did enjoy these player profiles that we're doing, please do leave some suggestions down below for some groups of players that you'd like us to do for more in-depth analysis on them. We might do some wingers, we might do some forwards. At the moment, our front line is fairly set, so we don't necessarily need to look at it replacing that at the moment. However, with Mo Salah coming to the end of his contract, whether or not he renews it or not might be a question. We might have to start looking at replacements there or thereabouts. But in the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely day, and up the Reds.